Many people have smoked marijuana. Many have seen marijuana. Very few people have ever heard of it.
Take a look in Genesis and it's a book number one. Can make the herb seed for the human. It starts way back on from creation. That was the time when the weed come from. So can make the herb, give it on to Adam. The man they lose that to make it find every lamb. Whole man Moses climb on Zion. And when they find the seed in the grave of Solomon.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Greg Gordon here from Pyramind. And today, we're here to break it down with Rocker T. Got my man T in the house. What's up, T?
Blessings.
Blessings
So
indeed.
happy to be here.
So cool to have you here. I'm super psyched.
Yeah, psyched.
Cool.
Very
So
psyched.
we have something really special today because on this very day that you are seeing this video, the day we are dropping it, 420 is the day we're Rocker T is dropping 23 remixes of the original Tru Ganjaman, right?
23 new remixes.
That is fat. So maybe share with us a little bit, kind of the backstory of where and how Tru Ganjaman originated. Kind of, you know, what happened coming out of your days with Skadanks. Back in the Bronx, in New York City,
Brooklyn, Lower Manhattan.
Right. Yep. So share with us a little bit about that.
Well, Skadanks is a band that we started in the late '80s, and there's a whole ska scene connected to a dance hall scene, connected to a hip hop scene that a bunch of people from 5 boroughs kind of organized together in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and there were many bands from the time. Skadanks is one of them. And Jah Warrior Shelter also comes out. That's a sound system that I started, and that comes out of the same scene. We made a mark in New York City.
Right, you guys were signed. You were actually signed to Elektra Records.
We ended up being signed to major label, to Elektra, and we have single out by them. We have album out on that label, and that was a really amazing time where we built up philosophies about music, about life that we apply, because we're music. That's all we do. That's all I do. I just make music. That's what I do, and that's where that foundation really became solid. Slowly through working with the sound systems and the bands, I went everywhere in the city with Jamalski. We were partners everywhere. So it's Rocker T and Jamalski. We were everywhere, and so Rocker T became something that I was really living. Like, I'm not just in a band, I'm also this being, Rocker T, that I started to really understand, like the Most High and my mother and my father sent me out here to do stuff in these streets and in this world and to help, and for music to be a language and a medicine and a communication and an upliftment, an education and an entertainment, So that's where the edutainment and all these things come from. Right.
And you touched on the concept of medicine here. Yeah. So how did that flow into this in terms of, this was well before there was any popularized movements for marijuana as a medicinal. Right. Even though many, eons back, people have known that this was a medicinal herb. Yeah. But, you really touched on that, and that's part of what you're about in bringing this song to the people, right? Yeah.
Like there's a philosophy that herb is the healing of the nation. I started to see that love, music, and herb are the healing of the nation. I kind of evolved and expanded the philosophy because I could see all these different musicians. Like a perfect example would be the Doobie Brothers, who were making statements about similar things that inspired me. And they're a band of brothers that are from all different places. They look different. They're not the typical commercial face of a band. Right. And they meant a lot to me. Sly and the Family Stone, Jimi Hendrix. These bands mean a lot to me. Earth, Wind and Fire. It's for the people. It's for the youth. And reggae music is particularly for that. So is hip hop.
And for me, that is the truth in it. And when you talk about the Tru Ganjaman, well, what is true? I think what is true here is your connection to your beliefs, your connection to your art, to the music and the message that you're spreading. And I know from seeing you with the Occupy movement, with the decolonized movement, the BMC, the Bob Marley Committee,
the Bob Marley
you
Committee.
know, and just setting up where people are trying to get their message out and being there as a force of support and supporting that message process. Is true. You know, it's honest to who you are. It's honest to your music, and I personally really respect that in you. I think that's that's a beautiful thing, and I think, you know, in this day and age, we need more of that. You know, we really need more of that truth. You brought a couple of your own remixes in here, right?
Yes,
so we're gonna break it down on a couple of these remixes.
Right.
So tell us about the one you got open here right now.
So this one that's open here, this particular mix, is all live drums. And like every
So is this is the Nyabinghi mix, is what you call it, right?
Yeah, this is and it's Kumina style Nyabinghi. It's the faster.
So for those who don't know, tell us what a Nyabinghi is.
Nyabinghi actually is the music that is designed to eliminate racism from the earth.
All right, so
then I recorded this all in my living room.
Ah, wow, okay.
Because I'm a very nifty live mic individual.
I know, I've seen your living room, man. It's impressive. Not to mention the record collection on the wall, all the vinyl.
You say the records make it sound really nice.
That's right. It's kind of
the sound
it's like its own diffuser panel.
It's a total fit. So I did it there. And then I took my studio mobile, I took my interface and I have my tubes and my computer, and I put it all in a suitcase. And I have a friend who's a master lead drummer. So big up to Ras Zebulon, for real. And he played the repeater drum. But that was recorded also basically in the field, in his living room.
Right.
On some, we have, you know, we use nice mics. And
nice.
We're smart about using tubes.
Of course.
And good mics.
Yeah, yeah.
So we did, that's all of that is just you know, like recorded that way. And then the vocals, I wanted to create a vibe like I was just talking about, of how we're playing drums right on the block. And often the drums aren't amplified, and we might have like a little speaker box or a small PA that the mic is coming out of.
Oh, yeah.
So you can be heard over. The jam gets to be 20 people, and you still want to hear the lyrics.
So it's like you're on the street, right?
So this was to create that kind of energy. So, and then I treated them with some cool plugins. I really like, this is a neat thing, the Abbey Road King's microphone.
Nice.
It's really, really sweet. And
what do you like about that so much? What does it do for you in terms of?
It has particular. It's an EQ. It's a mic setting, but it's not like just a compressor or limiter setting on a mic, or even just a tube emulation. It's actually EQing a certain way, as if you're in a certain setting on an older vintage mic.
Nice.
Awu, 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 awa, awa, sata ama sagana la la Gabriel alam, madani alam. Me chant, me chant. Oh, says I fear Babylon.
Let's see. What other plugs you got on top of that? Because you got a nice little chain going here, huh?
Yeah, and so I EQ'd it with this, which has some very incredibly cool.
Right, so you're using Isotopes alloy here.
Yeah. And it's got some very nice. The drive, it gives it a lot of even extra after.
Yeah.
Like what that mic does, what that mic plugin does, then this is, I'm accentuating.
Right, because you got the EQ plus you got an exciter and a compressor on this guy. So all three are in effect.
And I didn't totally like, it didn't sound even smooshed enough. And I don't like to over smoosh anything with one compressor. So I actually threw the V comp on it afterwards.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And that gave it a tube vibe.
All right. So last thing on the chain here is
this is really cool because Eddie is.
Oh, sure. So this is giving it the slapback feel, I think.
And
right?
this gives it that really crucial kind of tube echo kind of slap, that real nice
vintage slap effect on it.
And it's not just the tape sound, it has it's a very modern version of that.
So now you got another mix you brought in as well. Let's peep that out too, just to get a little feel for the difference here.
This mix I'll pull up is one I programmed.
Okay. So how'd you program this one?
I used Reason and some native instruments. And so I made my own bass for this, and I came up with a keyboard sound, and I also put in some time on an arpeggiator.
Okay.
To make this very trippy, like ambient thing that kind of, it's like a background. It's not a hard arpeggiation. It's more of a ambient.
And what would you use to create that
flow? I connected the ARP to, what was I using? It's probably I was either using the Thor. I was using the Thor or the Maelstrom, probably.
In Reason. Thor and Maelstrom in Reason.
And I connected the ARP to it.
Okay.
And then I really messed with the ARP quite a bit, like, you know.
Says I feel Babylon. Oh, says I feel Babylon. Oh, says I feel Babylon. Tell them say I'm a Tru Ganjaman.
This is the sound that I made with the arpeggiator.
You're rewiring Reason in the background.
Reason's rewired in Pro Tools.
Into Pro Tools, and you've got your MIDI tracks set up in Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Using the instruments in Reason and sequencing
or native
them.
instruments or whatever.
Sure, or whatever, and sequencing them out. But then you ultimately always print them down to audio. Yes.
Yeah.
What's your philosophy around that?
I feel that there's a certain thing to music that when it's played live. So even if I'm using sequencers or even if I'm programming instruments, some element of, you gotta be able to just do it from the top to the bottom should exist.
Right.
And if I allow myself to continuously go back and change it, then I feel like I'll get stuck in a loop of, am I sure it's the way it should be? But if I'm feeling a vibe and I play a part, I should be sure that's the way it should be.
Right.
Because that's how it was at that moment. Like,
Nice. What else you want to show us here on this mix?
so we did some other things here on the bass that are pretty cool. This compressor's really nice. That's like a traditional vibe to it. And you can get a very cool, some of the things from the 70s that we don't use anymore are still really awesome.
Yeah, like
electronically. Stevie Wonder and Kraftwerk and Africa Bambaataa and some of the things they did, Laurie Anderson, Devo, they did some really cool analog tone things and use compressors to just make them sound more programmed than it was someone playing it live kind of stuff. And these CLA compressors, I really feel have that old technique to them. And then I got one on the kick down there. I think I used, here's the other one I was looking for to show you too. That's a little, slightly more, but the same energy and with the analog low end settings, which is really cool. And then in the vocals, that's where I had the most fun. It's clean. I flanged it and gave it this, it's gonna sweep.
Nice slow flange.
And that's the background vocals you hear along with it. And that's Sister Sarah, by the way, Sarah CRD on the background vocals, big up. I did 3 different things. One where I used this metal flanger as a trippy effect. One where I used this the fuzz-wah as a trippy effect. And then one where I used the sci-fi as a trippy effect.
So each one of them have their characteristic plug
very different
that drives each one differently from the other, and that way you can intercut them and get different effects.
I did, I did very meticulous one word, one little piece of a line, and they're all coming out of the second track. So the main track will just keep rolling. The vocals will have a consistency to
with the consistent flange going throughout the whole thing.
With that, and then there'll be these various.
Right, and they just kind of pop out of the mix.
And they jump.
Right, there's the fuzz wah.
And here's the sci-fi.
Here, let's hear it all together just to ride this out.
Says how you feel Babylon. Says how you feel Babylon. Says how you feel Babylon. Tell them say I'm a Tru Ganjaman.
All right, so this version of the mix, I took a little different tact with, right? A little different spin.
That's the point of 23 mixes.
Right.
That is we're gonna touch any style you like. We got you pretty much.
We got you covered.
Just about.
I was surprised it wasn't 420 mixes.
Well, we haven't done the heavy metal mix yet. There's some still coming, but.
So on this mix, I really wanted to think about what Tru Ganjaman meant to me, who the essence of T was coming through this track.
Thanks, man. Respect.
And so I really thought about it from that perspective, but I drew upon some of my own roots in creating this mix because I drew from an album I produced in the late 90s, early 2000s called Goddess Gaia.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So that was a record where I produced 4 different women singing in multiple languages and combining different world ethnic influences, Middle Eastern, Western African, and I was really interested in how that, fused with electronic production. And it was a lot harder to do then. It's a lot easier to do now with these tools.
True.
With Ableton.
True.
I was able to, jack up the speed of the track, because I think when you produced it, it was at 160.
It's 160, but
it's at half time 160. So it's really 80, right?
83
is what I was
under
hearing.
83.
And then I brought that up to 103 for this version of the mix. And then I really wanted to mess with your vocals and change the flow of the vocal a little bit.
Yeah.
So from the Goddess Gaia record, I was able to go back to some of the original samples, and that's where you hear the Tibetan bell at the beginning. And also, it's a crystal bowl sample that's toning that you hear at the very beginning of the track. It's that kind of sets an enharmonic feel at the beginning of the track, and then drops into being more harmonic when you actually hear the root notes of the track kick in. So I'll just play the beginning of the track just to get that feel.
I love you,
So let me just solo that bowl one real quick second here, because I think it's really important for me to set that tone. And this is on the bell track, you'll see right here. So there's the bells, right, and that's the bowl toning. And this came from some of the Goddess Gaia recordings that we did. We did these for those original mixes. So I brought back these samples from there.
Very cool.
And then the other sample that I drew on that kind of also set up the tone for me, well, there was a couple of them. There's the ney, which is the melodic flute instrument in here. So anybody who's heard that album would definitely recognize that sample right there. But the other piece came from another album that I did in the mid-90s with my posse, Native. And these were the Native Buds. And this was like the DJ crew that I hung out with then.
All right.
And they came from a single that we did called Brothers. And this was the sample that I felt set it up pretty nice.
Many people have smoked marijuana. Many have seen marijuana. But very few people have ever heard marijuana.
Right. So to me, this kind of embodies the essence of hearing the experience.
The Tru Ganjaman on the mic, you hear
right.
marijuana.
Well, you hear that, right?
I
Okay.
love it.
So I was looking for those elements to kind of set the track up with, and then
That's tight.
The other piece that really dropped it together was the bass line that came in here with the keyboard in the hook. But there's a couple of cool pieces that I think really help pull this track together from the Ableton side of the world. And that came in with the vocals. So what I did with your vocal, I just took the entire vocal and basically loaded it into a sampler in Ableton, and then put it into slicing mode. And if you zoom in here, you can see the slices that were actually used for this. So I'm going to zoom it out a little bit. And here, so you can hear some of the processing that's on the track that's creating some of the jitter effects that are in there. And that's part of this processing chain. But here you'll see the sampler. There's the lead vocal with all of the chops on it.
Right.
And then if you drag out, you can see the isotope nectar on the end that has a jitter processor in it that's actually causing those to jump. Now, I didn't do that with all of them. If you look at the other vocal, I kind of staggered them, a lot like your production technique, right? You showed in Pro Tools how you had different tracks with different processing on them. So I did a similar technique here where I loaded them up into simpler, and then right here you'll see the vocals clean, but it has the delay effect on it. And then I just played the track and experimented with how I wanted the flow of the vocal to go, using your original vocal, but warping it so that it would play in time at the increased tempo.
BPM.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things about the simpler in Ableton is that you can load it into the simpler and it warps directly in the simpler. So you don't have to use it just as an audio file.
You don't have to put the audio and then reset the warp function and the BPM and do all that.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So in slicing mode, it just basically mapped your entire vocal out to these tracks. Now I did have to go in and adjust them, right? So if you zoom in, you'll see, the start and end times get a little bit adjusted here. So I'd use the nudge function here to, you can see, adjust the end, say.
Right, because the software is assuming, and sometimes you want it to be exactly there.
Exactly, exactly. Because even in slicing mode, I think this is really intended for beats. But I wanted to see how it would work on vocals. Well, right?
and because often the hardest point of the vocal is long after the syllable begins.
Yeah.
So that's probably why that would happen.
Yeah. The challenging
with
part
a beat,
here.
It's very recognizable for the software to see that.
Right.
This is the strike of the kick.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Where's the
vocal?
Where's the actual
it's a little more subtle with the vocal, but it actually worked pretty well.
Yes.
The trick for me was actually in playing these. I had to get the timing right too, because they would play through into the next one here. So even though
they don't
right. Well, even
into simpler.
Right, because playback is poly or through. So even in poly, it's cool. You could play more than one at a time, but I wasn't trying to harmonize in this case. All I was trying to do was have chopped up vocals that were warped and able to kind of play around with them on the keypad.
And create what you wanted.
Yeah. And that's where then if you look at the tracks here,
the vocals go the way
I can kind of zoom in, and you can see here. Let's just kind of jump in on the intro, for example, here. And then when we kick in on the verse here, much like what you did on your track, it's funny how we have similar technique here, just different software. I went to the original vocal, dropped it in, and then I would do some edits, little stutter edits within the context of the file. The critical piece for this track for me that did make it work was getting a played bass line that had a real live electric bass feel.
True.
Right?
Okay.
And so that it wasn't all straight up electronica feeling.
Because that's a very particular cool thing about your mix that I noticed right away, is that you've got this cool live bass line.
Yes.
It even goes up a chord.
Yes.
Where the vocals stay on one chord.
Right.
But you put a bass line in that actually goes with what the melody of the vocals is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it was actually a sampled bass that I found this really cool lick, and then I repitched it to make it actually modulate against the track.
Nice.
So, and that was just kind of a cool...
But it's a live...
Yeah.
It's a live playing of a bass line.
And I wanted these breaks to be really kind of spacey, surreal. So this is where the nay comes in, and it's also where I filter the hell out of the drums on these. So if you look at the drum processing on here, you can see the auto filter, right?
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So you can see it on the drums themselves. Here's the auto filter, and there's the.
Did you hand automate it, or did you? It's just running.
Oh yeah, I just used the push to actually record the automation here. So you can see right here, there's the frequency, and I can override it.
Right.
Right, or it'll just pick up on the automation itself. So it's a high pass filter. I had a lot of fun with this track, man. I really enjoyed it. It was just a joy to kind of create in my own mind the vision of Tru Ganjaman and what I thought he would sound like. And I think that's what everybody brought, that diversity to this remix.
This thing is diverse.
Yeah, it is diverse.
I'm going to just shout them out because I love them.
Yes, do it.
Toadface, Sachiom, Subatomic, Milk, Fade Star, Bassline Rider, Young Trip, Fibes, Wagon Burner, Roommate, Milk, Illwood, Zion Train,
Nicky Nuts, yeah.
G2, Sydney Mills, 6 Block,
Sess1,
yep. Ross G, and I think that's everyone.
Illtext,
and Illtext,
right?
My man Illtext.
Big up,
That's
big
everyone.
up.
As you're seeing this video, the 23 remixes are available.
Yes.
And I'm also, on the heels of this, like Greg said, I'm gonna drop an album called The Return of the Tru Ganjaman. And I'm very, very excited about this whole thing, these remixes and this album.
Awesome. Well, look, I'm Greg Gordon. Thanks for watching Pyramind.
Big up to Greg Gordon and to Pyramind.
Yes, I. And look, for more videos like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Pyramind.com, to find out more about what we do here at Pyramind. And look forward to seeing you all again soon. Peace out.